Well, everywhere we look, we see this incredible complexity, this order, this harmony, that if you recall, Kepler was saying that is what science is all about. Science is involved in looking at this order and the harmony that God has created for us. But when we reject the designer, then you're left with this deep problem associated with the disconnect between a random chaotic box and all the order that we see, and the beauty and the grandeur that's associated with it. Well, we're going to look at a few of these. Okay, let's examine this reality then.
In the 19th century, biologists thought that cells were simple, homogeneous globules of plasm. Now, with that kind of understanding of life, it was easy to imagine how life might have arisen through a few simple chemical reactions, and the origin of life was no big problem. Post-1953, with the discovery of the structure of DNA and also the information-bearing properties of DNA, we can no longer look at the cell the same way. And what we're now discovering is that the cell is chock full of exquisite miniature machines, little turbines, little rotary engines, little walking robots that cart materials from one end of the cell to another. Now, in our experience, all of those kinds of entities are produced by one cause and only one cause, and that is intelligence. And that, again, challenges materialism, because the materialistic worldview of the 19th century said there's two fundamental realities, matter and energy. What we're now discovering is that there's a third fundamental reality, and that is information. And everything we know about information is that it must come from an intelligent cause. So the presence of information in living systems suggests an intelligence that pre-exists us, that is responsible for all that exquisite nanotechnology and information.
Okay, so what Dr. Meyer is talking about here is this idea that what has happened in terms of the technology that we have now is that we have begun to take a look at that inner cell.
Science has revealed the details of an entire system of information processing that bears the hallmarks of intelligent design. With computer animation, we can enter the cell to view this remarkable system at work. After entering the heart of the cell, we see the tightly wound strands of DNA, storehouses for the instructions necessary to build every protein in an organism. In a process known as transcription, a molecular machine first unwinds a section of the DNA helix to expose the genetic instructions needed to assemble a specific protein molecule. Another machine then copies these instructions to form a molecule known as messenger RNA. When transcription is complete, the slender RNA strand carries the genetic information through the nuclear pore complex, the gatekeeper for traffic in and out of the cell nucleus. The messenger RNA strand is directed to a two-part molecular factory called a ribosome. After attaching itself securely, the process of translation begins. Inside the ribosome, a molecular assembly line builds a specifically sequenced chain of amino acids. These amino acids are transported from other parts of the cell and then linked into chains often hundreds of units long. Their sequential arrangement determines the type of protein manufactured. When the chain is finished, it is moved from the ribosome to a barrel-shaped machine that helps fold it into the precise shape critical to its function. After the chain is folded into a protein, it is then released and shepherded by another molecular machine to the exact location where it is needed.
This is absolutely mind-boggling to perceive at this scale of size such a finely tuned apparatus, a device that bears the marks of intelligent design and manufacture. And we have the details of an immensely complex molecular realm of genetic information processing. And it's exactly this new realm of molecular genetics where we see the most compelling evidence of design on the Earth.
What an amazing thing going on inside every living cell. The gentleman at the end, Dr. Kenyon, beholding the reality of what was going on within the cell, recognizing that his own theory, faced with the reality of the deep complexity, he used to believe for years and years that there had to be some random process there because there couldn't be a creator. And so his theory that some chemical attraction would bring all those things together. The more he began to look at the cell and the complexity, he realized that was impossible. And now that we understand what is really going on inside there, Dr. Kenyon recognizes and understands that this is the result of intelligent designer. That's the way we should respond. When we gaze into the box, when we gaze and see the plain evidence that God has given to us. You know, the problem is that doesn't always happen. Man doesn't always accede to the reality of what is plain to them. Dr. Francis Crick, a brilliant man, the co-discoverer of DNA, when he began to gaze into the cell and began to understand the deep complexities of what we have there. In fact, if you really want to understand how complex this issue is, it has been stated that just for the single amoeba, the information that is found within the amoeba to provide all of the DNA structure would fill 1,000 sets of Encyclopedia Britannicas. Amazing complexity. So when Dr. Francis Crick is peering into the microscope, and it is beginning to dawn on him the deep complexity of what we see here at the fundamental level of life, he becomes convinced that this could not have happened by chance. He says, an honest man, armed with all the knowledge available to us now, could only state that in some sense the origin of life appears at the moment to be almost a miracle. So many are the conditions which would have had to have been satisfied to get it going.